Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
ये भी कोई गेम है? और
All right, welcome everybody to Parent Special. I'm extremely excited to be speaking with you again. Just so I know, do we have any parents, any new parents? New parents means you were not here for the past Parent Special that we did a few weeks ago. So is this, the question is this your first session? If you say yes, if it's a first session. Oh, wow, okay, that's amazing. More than 50% of you are here for the first time. All right, great. Well, so as a quick introduction, my name is Pulkit Agarwal. I actually, last time we did this, I was still studying, but now I actually just graduated from my MBA from Stanford. And the plan is to move to Singapore afterwards. So I'm pretty excited to be doing this. The past month has been so much fun for me. I have learned a lot, and it's been amazing to see the impact it's had on some of the students in the class. Getting your notes and the students' notes on email and in chat has just been the most rewarding thing for me. So I'm actually thinking of continuing this professionally going forward from here. So it's been pretty great. So I will start, as I usually do with the students. I start off with a math question. So I will have the audacity to ask all of you a simple SAT math question. So I'll put it up, and you should be able to do this in your head, and I will give you 30 seconds to do this. And this is, so you get a taste of how the SAT classes are actually like. So let me do that right now. And then I will put up a poll, and then you can answer the question via the poll. Okay, so the question we will be doing today is question 4. And let me open up the poll. And thank you so much for the congratulations in chat. I really appreciate it. All right, I usually count the students down for the last 7 seconds. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay, so looks like many of you are either very good at paying attention or sitting there with your kids or helping you out with this question. So I'm kidding. No, so I put up this question because this is a quintessential SAT question, and I want you to see what this SAT question is. And it's basically, it's very simple mathematics, right? It's a very simple equation. Like really anybody who even just started high school could do this. But what they're tricking you with over here is they're asking you the value of 8x, and they're not asking you the value of x. And this is just quintessential SAT. So what happens is people get tricked. They start solving for x, and then they pick a is equal to 2, or a is 2 because x is equal to 2. But they forget that the question is actually asking for 8x. So the answer is over here. So I start off with this because in actuality, 80% or more of the SAT is just this. And so something that I'm surprised that many online platforms and coaching centers assume is that if you get the question wrong, you are not understanding the content properly. And so they take you through, especially Khan Academy takes you through hours of content revision. Whereas really the muscle in your brain that you need to be exercising for this is completely different. The content is quite simple. It's aspects of concentration and attention, how to read the question properly, brainstorming fast approaches of solving the same question. So the students and I, we've gone through an entire month of just this. We've not been focusing on the content as much as we're focusing how you should be coming and showing up to the test and what mentality you should be bringing to the test. So this is basically the culmination, and I have for you today, I want to present to you the study plan that I've created. And the study plan is important because everything we've done till now is I've been imparting to the students the approach that they should take when studying for the SAT and when doing practice tests. Now, the doing the practice test and doing the studying has to be done by the students themselves. And so the study plan is basically a guide that if you follow this, I can tell you, having gone through the SAT in so much depth, that this will truly, truly impact your your kids in a very different way and really help them get that score. So let me jump right in. Many of you have been waiting for this. I promised this a week ago. I'm sorry I got delayed. I wanted to make sure I have everything in there. So let me show you the plan, and then we'll have a special guest come in, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So let's jump right in. Let me share with you the study plan that I have. All right, so this is it. This is the famous study plan that I've been telling you I will share. So there's a couple aspects to this. The first aspect is that this is focusing on studying smart. And this means that you're not going to be doing a whole lot of practice tests. You'll be doing a few practice tests, but you'll be taking away all the knowledge you can. So you start with two things: a weekly test. So every week on the same day, so on the same time and weekday as the actual test that you're taking, your student should be taking the SAT. And they should be taking a practice SAT on their own. And this is to get your student in the rhythm of taking the SAT on the actual date, so that nothing on the actual day is a surprise to them. And then there's a couple of daily activities that go from concentration building exercises to weekly practice. So 10 math questions, 9 writing questions, and 1 reading passage. And then additionally, for the students, there is a additional practice for math and additional practice for writing, depending on any growth areas. So if you notice here, I have using approach below. So this is the approach that I've laid out. It's broken out into math, writing, and reading. None of this should be new to your children. We've done this in depth in classes, and we're doing this every single day as review as well. The key part that I actually want to focus with the parents is this portion here, which is the role to be played by, let's do a different color. The role to be played by a tutor, parent, elder sibling, or friend. And so this is where you can really come in and help the student really excel at the studying. So let's take an example here. So over here in mathematics, we try and find as many ways to solve each question as possible. So this is really not looking at just solving the question, but solving the question through 5 different ways and building the muscle of identifying a faster way to solve the question. So once the student has identified the ways, then the parent's role comes in and identify any additional ways to solve each question. Because the growth in the student's ability to do the SAT happens first here, but then happens even more so when a parent, friend, or tutor points out an additional way that the student is not currently seeing. And so this portion here is actually very important to help your child level up in areas that they currently are not part of the repertoire. So this portion is really building the repertoire. So this is quite an important portion. And so I wanted to lay this out. So for each one, you will notice there's an equivalent for the tutor, parent, friend, or sibling. So we do the 5 steps of reading. So we check if reading is done correctly. We do a root cause analysis, and then we check if the root cause analysis is done correctly. And so I'm going to pause this for a second here. Yes, okay. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit because we've talked about root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is basically the cornerstone upon which the past 30 days have been focused on. Essentially, the approach is that you take a test on a Sunday, and then you do a root cause analysis, which is trying to figure out what is the root cause of every single mistake. So usually what it ends up being is, if you noticed in the question before, the root cause was not that you did not know algebra. It was that maybe you didn't read the question properly, right? Or maybe it could have been a handwriting mistake. And so based on the root cause analysis, you then develop your own study plan that addresses the specific root cause. So if we're not reading the question properly, we have an outlined approach of how to read the question. Or some people they make mistakes with the negatives when they work with negatives. So the solution there would be to download 100 problems off the web that have basically just negative manipulations, like Kumon style, right? Like -5 times -6, etc., to really get the student used to working with negatives and not forgetting those small lines that can make such a big difference in mathematics. And so as you go through this, you are collecting the root causes, and then you are addressing them through a week of study. At the end of that week, only if you have addressed all the root causes do you then pick up and do another paper. You do not do the other paper until you have addressed all the root causes previously. So this is really getting to the core of the student's area of improvement, as opposed to circling around it with ambiguous content questions or thousands of things that they need to memorize for the SAT. Okay, so let me jump back in to the sharing. Okay, so based on that same cornerstone, we have come up with the writing section. So there's a list of grammar rules which the student needs to memorize. And then for each question, I advise them to go and identify the grammar error for each option in the answer. There's 4 options. They should identify it for each option. And then use Khan Academy's answers or a tutor if the grammar rules are identified correctly. Now, again, if a grammar rule is missed, then the root cause is that grammar rule. So to address that root cause, the student should print a passage from the web. And in that passage, highlight whenever that rule is followed. So for example, if the student needs to work on commas, then in this passage or let's say quotations, then in this document, they would go and highlight every time there's a quotation and identify what type of quotation is this. Okay, so they get used to seeing what the various grammar rules are in action, and noticing those grammar rules in a passage will become second nature to their brain if they go through with this. Here, the role of the parent, tutor, friend, or sibling is crucial, which is identify any other instances that may have been missed in that same passage. Because there's no solutions for that, right? SAT has solutions, but there's no solutions here. So you want to ensure that the practice that happens, they're not practicing the wrong thing again and again. Otherwise, the wrong thing will become embedded in them. They have to grow, and this portion is where the growth happens. And the reading, I've sent an email about this, falling in love with the passage. I hope you discuss this with your children. And here there's a role for read a passage with a friend and swap roles every day. So in this class, I also sent another email about this. This is crucial that the students start to learn to fall in love with the passage. And you can do this by asking them content questions, asking them what they learned, really focusing in on the learning from the passage. And then have some friends ask you deeper questions. And what this will do is this will increase the likelihood that they're doing active reading in the first round of the passage. And then there's a deeper do point of para and point of sentence activity that we've touched on in class, which will really help them also understand the passage. And then again, for each answer choice, for every single answer choice, all 4, there's an activity that we go through class that I want them to go through themselves. So here again, the role of the parents especially is to get the students excited for the passage. There's a lot you can learn if you focus on the learning portion of the passage as opposed to just the score. It's very easy to fall in love with the passage and be excited for it. And then obviously you want to play the role of the friend as outlined over here. And then you want to check if correct support is identified for this section. And then pressure test the secret sauce segmentation, which secret sauce is something we went through in class, and your kids can fill you in on this. The last thing that I want to touch on is these 3 boxes here, which are very crucial, which is how you prepare the week, the 24 hours and the day of the test is very important. And so some things are go to bed at 10 p.m., wake up early, do your morning exercise, eat healthy food, and minimize sugar and coffee. So you minimize sugar and coffee so that the student is not dependent on caffeine and the kick from sugar, so that on the actual day, you can eat sugary snacks on the actual test day, and then that will impact your body. But if you were eating sugar and caffeine every single day before the test, then caffeine on the day and sugar on the day will not have a beneficial impact. It will only bring you back to normal. 24 hours exam, 24 hours before, I recommend no additional study, and I actually recommend relaxation and sports. Do limit TV to less than 1.5 hours, because more than that, it will start numbing your brain. And then get ready for tomorrow. Pack food and pack the things needed. And the day of the test is you should wake up with a smile, do morning yoga, go to the bathroom, eat a low-carb breakfast. Low-carb breakfast so that your body is not digesting heavy food and you can be focused, your body and mind can be focused on the test. Boost your confidence in whatever way works for you, and then enter the room with a smile and then crush the test. And the last piece here is that throughout this session and these classes, we've been focusing on having fun. So you notice that we come in with a nice pump up music, and then we have a ton of fun in this class because the more fun you have, the more you can put your brain in the sense of fun, the more effective these study approaches are, and the more the students looks forward to it, and there's less resentment for the test. And that small mindset shift from this being a task or a chore to this being something quite enjoyable makes a huge difference in the student's growth and the student's ability to focus. So I've said a lot. This will be sent out over email as well. This will also be made available on the website for everybody. But I do have a special guest today. We have an alumni from UWC joining us, who is a current student at UCLA studying economics and psychology. And she will share with us her process through SAT, but also, more importantly, share with us the psychology behind the study approach and why this is a recommended study approach. So Aditi, please welcome Aditi Rudra and take it away.
Hi, I'm Aditi. Thank you for the introduction, Pulkit. I just sort of wanted to go a little bit into the cognitive model behind the approaches that Pulkit has outlined today, and how to sort of understand the mental cognition and just understanding the brain a little bit more, so that you can make the best use out of the approaches that Pulkit has outlined today. So what I'm going to be using to sort of explain this is the dual processing model. So this was developed by Daniel Kahneman, and he actually won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002 for this. He's written about it in great detail in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And so this dual processing model sort of suggests that we have two frameworks to process information that we receive. So the first is what's called system one processing. So this is very fast sort of processing. It doesn't use a lot of brain power at all, and it tends to use what we call heuristics, or sort of mental shortcuts or fallbacks that the brain likes to rely on. And this was, it suggested that this form of processing information was developed as a form of adaptation in situations where we need survival. So it allows us to make quick, responsive decisions in sort of any moment when we're under pressured situations. And on the other hand, we have this second system called the system two processing. And this uses a lot more logic and reason in our processing. But while that may be a good thing, on the other hand, it's very slow and it uses a lot of brain power. And like any other muscle in our body, our brain falls under the sway of inertia, and it tries to reduce as much brain usage as possible. So we actually tend to fall back on our system one processing whenever possible. And so when we're looking at this in relation to learning and the SAT in particular, we need to understand how encoding information in our brain works. So when we encode new information, we actually need our system two processing. But what's really special about this is that once we become comfortable with that information, we can sort of go on autopilot mode, and it can be transferred into our system one processing. So I'm sure we can all recall a time when basic algebra was really challenging for us, and it used a lot of mental power. And so that's when we were using our system processing to do so. And now simple addition and basic algebra seems to require no mental effort at all. And that's because we've been able to transfer that information into our system one processing. So when we're looking at this in the relation to the SAT, when we see a question on the SAT, it's brand new information to us. So what we want to be doing is using our system two processing. But what tends to happen, because of the time pressure situation that the students are put in, is they fall back on that system one processing. So when we're stressed, our body releases these hormones like adrenaline that puts us in a state of the fight or flight mode, or we're in that state of survival, which is where the system one was sort of first developed for. So what happens is we think that we're using these fast mechanisms to sort of get through the questions. But as I mentioned, they also use all of these heuristics or these mental shortcuts, which unfortunately are highly prone to mistakes. So if we talk about the example question that Pulkit did with all of you at the start of the class today, the big problem was that you don't see the second part of the question that is asking you for 8x instead of x. And this is one of those mistakes that happens when we use our system one processing. We try to move so fast through the questions. We're trying to limit the amount of brain power that we're using because we're really stressed because of that hormone release. And so we lose sight of these small things, and that's what causes us to make mistakes. So one problem that a lot of people would sort of make is they'll assume that this is very natural for the mind to do. So there's no point trying to find a way to fix this. And instead, we should look for other ways to solve the questions. But what these approaches that Pulkit's been outlining do is they allow us to overcome this sort of mental barrier and sort of cross over it and give us a way to sort of not only find the root causes of each problem that we're solving, but find the root causes of why our brain is not letting us solve the question in the correct way in the first place. So one kind of, you might say, simple way to sort of overcome this is through practice. So if all of the students practice with every single question they do, these correct approaches to each question, they will be able to move them from their system 2 processing into their system 1 processing. So if every math question they do the 5 steps of reading the question that are outlined in the approach. Or if every writing question, they're able to point out what are the grammar errors in each of the options, their brain will become accustomed to doing that in any pressured situation, that even when they're sitting in the SAT and their heart is racing and their brain is saying, go system 1, go system 1, system 1 is going to give them the right answer because they would have practiced using that correct approach so many times that system 1 is actually going to feed them the logic and reason of system 2. And that's why this approach is very important, because you really can't show up on the test day and just expect to do something new. That's not the way our brain works. That's not the way our mental cognition encodes information. So what we really need to do is practice using these approaches from the start. And that's one way that you guys as parents can come in and make sure that the students are using the correct approaches when they're practicing their questions, because this will allow them to build that mental skill set that when they're sitting in the pressure situation, they're actually falling back on something that incorporates logic and reason, rather than falling back on something that relies on these sort of mental shortcuts and heuristics that I was mentioning. And sort of to put this in a bit of perspective, I'm a recent UWC grad. So I took the SAT a couple years ago, just like all of your children. And I took SAT prep classes. So I recently recall the situation your children may be facing right now. But so after attending these sessions with Pulkit, I can say that there is quite a clear distinction between how other test prep centers use, what methods they use to help students get through the SAT in comparison to the approaches outlined here, because these approaches really do tackle the sort of cognitive aspects and the cognitive fallbacks that our brain has, rather than sort of accepting them and then moving from there. And I think the first assumption that a lot of test prep centers make is that when you get a question wrong, it's because you don't know the content. And as I've sort of outlined here, more often than not, the reason that a student got a question wrong is because the SAT and the test makers have created these questions to go against the natural order of mental cognition. So they're stressing your brain and you're straining it in ways that it's not comfortable and it's not used to doing. And that's why this test seems so different and difficult to kind of overcome. And sort of in my preparation with these other test centers, they make you memorize the approach to particular types of questions. But if we learn how to read the question properly, or we learn sort of a generic approach to answering any question, then you're sort of building this strong base through these approaches that you can tackle anything that the SAT gives to you. And unfortunately, College Board doesn't give a set syllabus on specific, with specific syllabus statements and what can come on the SAT. So no matter how many approaches to specific types of questions you give, even if they give it for 100, 200 types of questions, there could be a 201st question they don't have a solution or a particular approach to. And therefore, for the sake of the way that the brain processes information, we want to be making sure that we have a generic sort of approach to all questions that we can use in every situation. And this sort of method of College Board is very different to a lot of the testing schemes that international schools use, like the IGCSEs and the IB. And unfortunately, a lot of us in international schools, we face a very different education system to what is being taught in US schools. And as someone who has just finished my IB at UWC and has finished my first year at a US college, I can definitely say that it is a bit of an adjustment into the type of education style and the learning style. So the type of studying methods that we use for things like the GCSEs don't necessarily work when we're doing the SAT. I know particularly with the GCSEs, I used to do lots of past papers, and this is one of the recommended methods of studying, doing multiple practice tests over and over again. And that's very useful for GCSEs because you're testing your content every time. But as we've kind of explored here, the problem with the SAT is not the content, but it's understanding why we're getting questions wrong and in what situations, and how we can train our brain to not make those mistakes again. And to do so, we have to understand why we're making those mistakes in the first place. So actually doing multiple practice tests over and over again, which many other test prep centers recommend, is not the best way for your brain to progress. And in fact, it's very tiring for the brain because these kind of tests are going against the natural order of mental cognition. It becomes very strenuous for the brain, and it's actually very, very difficult to do tests back to back, day after day, because your brain gets very tired from that. And not only does your brain not be not able to sort of cope up with that, it tends to fall into the trap of complacency, because when you see the same type of question over and over again, on the test day, when you see that type of question again, you're just going to assume that you know what it is and you know how to do it, and without reading the question fully, you may think that you've got it solved, when they may be tricking you in that question. And that is primarily the SAT's way of kind of differentiating between different people, is through these methods of trickery almost, because the content is generally pretty basic and is actually they're playing with cognition and understanding the psychology of the brain, and using these approaches, which are much more reason-based and logic-based as opposed to memorization-based, actually help to expand the student's ability to answer any type of question that they're posed with.
All right, thank you so much for that, Aditi. That was very helpful. I'll do a quick poll to see if that was helpful information for the parents. Did that make sense? And was that helpful to know? Okay, awesome, perfect. Thank you so much. 98% of you, that was helpful. So that is great. So the reason I have Aditi come here and share this actually is to drive home 2 points. The first point is, please don't have your kids go through multitudes of practice tests one after the other, because that will really, it's only going to make their final score worse. They're going to start to hate the SAT, they're going to get complacent, and then on their day, they're going to not be involved with the SAT. If you follow this approach, within 4 to 5 SAT entire tests, within 4 to 5, you should be exactly at the place where you are capable mentally. You should not need any more than that. If you've done this approach properly, even within 3 tests, that's more than enough. And thank you so much for writing a thank you message for Aditi. That's very nice. So again, that's the first point. Please don't have them do multitudes of practice tests. Please have them learn from each practice test before they do the next one. The break can be anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks. And the second thing which I really want to drive home, and this is very important, which is that what we went over in this class is extremely unique. So I'm going to take off my humility hat here for a second, which is that what we went through in this class is not being gone over anywhere else. So that means 2 things. The first thing is that this is an unparalleled opportunity. So I'm really glad all of you were able to get it, and the videos are online. I recommend you to go back and watch it. But the second thing means is that once you leave these classes, then this information is not going to be reaffirmed by any other teacher, sessions, or test centers. So it is very important that you take this information very importantly and as like very useful information, and you don't forget it. If you go out in the world and the rest of the world is telling you do 10 practice tests, you should know that all of the reasoning that we went through stands upon logical grounds. I've always asked the students if this makes sense. if this was logical, as I did with you. And every step it was logical. So they must not fall back upon the way that the rest of the world is doing it. And if you want to go be up there and be the top 1% in the scores, you have to also follow a steady approach that is being followed by the 1%. The normal approach of just plugging and chugging and going through numerous practice tests and just doing mathematics and not really looking at the SAT and how it's structured is not going to work for this one. So please, the two things are, A, this opportunity is unparalleled. The classes and the content that we've been through is not laid out anywhere else on any other website or any other test center in Asia or any other tuition center. So it's very important that you take this as important information. And the second thing is, please don't forget it once you leave. So some of the things that I've loved is I've had students message me that they used to hate studying, or they don't. I've had parents message me that the students didn't study and they've been coming to these classes and they've been coming to these classes on their own. Parents have said that this is a whole new approach that will make a big difference in not only SAT, but other subjects also. And that is true. I do encourage you to explore with your child how these approaches can be applied in different subjects. I've had students tell me that they hated English and that English has been made fun. And I'm just telling you, to make writing rules and grammar rules fun is a big challenge. And so please have your students continue to enjoy those rules and not go back into hating them. We've put a lot of effort into making this entire process fun and educational. And then I've had students tell me that they've learned more in one class than the entire month at school. And I just shared this with you because parents have not been part of these classes. You may have heard stuff from your kids, but I share this with you again to just reaffirm that this has been a very important and very unique approach, but that does not mean that it's not a good approach, okay? If the rest of the world isn't doing it, this works. And I encourage you to try it out and have your kids go through it. And kids are already having big results without even going through the study approach and the practice. Just through these 30 days, there's been some tremendous results. Okay, so that sort of concludes the retroactive portion of today. A little looking into the future, there's two things. One is next week I've extended the SAT classes because 95% of the students said they want to keep going. They want more studying. Can you believe it, parents? We should rejoice. Our kids want to study more. 95% confidence here. So next week we're going to do 2 sessions on the SAT essay. We are going to do 2 sessions on computer science. And this is because for some reason I've noticed that Singapore does not focus as much on computer science for their students. And so I want to sort of bring that change to Singapore. The rest of the world is all crazy about computer science, like India and the US, and the computer science is like live and breathe, right? And as you know, as parents that are working in industry, obviously you know this much better. The importance of knowing tech and computer science is very important. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to know coding, but you have to know the basics because every single subject is operating on the basis of CS. Even things like arts now and media, you know, things like auto-tune, all of that is being done through computer as well, right? Even things like economics and trading, just with quantitative hedge funds coming up and with quantitative hedge funds doing algo trading, more than 80% of trades on the NASDAQ is algo trading. So it's important to know that basis that makes the world. So I want to now try and making computer science fun, and hopefully I want to inspire students in high school to take computer science as a subject in IB. Even if they don't want to major in it, I do think they should take that as a subject in IB. And for some reason, I'm forgetting what the third thing is that we'll do. Oh, yes. Okay, third thing. We have a surprise session, which is sort of a celebratory session on Wednesday. We'll have a guest. We'll have 2 guests come in, and we will be celebrating on Wednesday the end of our SAT. So Monday, Tuesday, essay writing. Wednesday, surprise guest, celebratory session, and wrap up of SAT. And then Thursday, Friday is computer science. After that, because I have now graduated and I am progressing into the real world, as they call it, my parents tell me I need to generate some income for the family and, you know, feed the proverbial kids at home. And so unfortunately, I have to jump behind a paywall. Trust me, it's been so much fun having 100+ students, and I know this will decrease, but society tells me to jump behind a paywall. And so the paywall has now been erected. It will be going up at the end of the month. So you have this till the end of the month, after which the paywalls will go up on everything, the videos online and these classes. So to feed those proverbial kids, as I talk about, there are two things that I'm announcing. The first is for a select group of people, for 15 students, I will be doing guided SAT practice. So the approach that we went through on here, I will be doing the portion that is the tutor, friend, etc.'s role, and I will guide them. So this is called the intensive SAT practice. This is all on the website. It's available for you to purchase. It's $1,200. It's not free. It's behind a paywall. Again, I'm really sorry. But this is guided by me, so I can only take 15 students due to limitations on my time. But this is intensive. This will be 70 to 100 hours of studying for the SAT using this approach. And this is for those students that A, already have a test date booked and are ready and dedicated to taking the SAT once and never taking it again. And B, it's for those students that have the content base already. There's two parts to SAT. First, you learn the content. And for most students, the content has been covered in high school in great depth. If your child does not know the content base yet, I would encourage them to go on Khan Academy and learn the content before they come and do the second part. This part that we've gone through in class is really what will take you to that 1600, to that perfect score, because this will round off the edges and your approaches. The content has been covered. And so this is the portion that we go into, because only if you know the basic content can I then work with you and help you find 4 extra ways of doing the same math question, right? If you can find the one, then I can help you find the extra 4. So this will be guided with me 1 month or 4 to 5 weeks before each test date. So the August, actually all of them are live now. It's limited to the first 15 people. It's the only way I can make it fair. Limitations on my time. I don't want to take on too many. And so this is all available on the website now. The second thing I will be doing is starting from July 1st to July 31st, I will be doing an IB mathematics prep course. That is also on the website. And actually, Naman, can you type that into chat, please, for everybody, if you're there? So this website, so this course is IB prep course. So if you're taking IB AA-HL or IB AI-HL, for both of you, this works. I've gone through the content such that I picked out the most difficult portions of mathematics that are most frequently tested, and also the overlap between AA and AI both, but for HL only. Now, this course requires, again, a base in a strong base in mathematics. If these SAT classes were too fast for your kids, then my teaching style may not match for mathematics for your kids' learning style. So this is for those people that have ideally taken IGCSE advanced mathematics and have a strong base in mathematics, so they'll be able to keep up through this. So the classes will be 10:30 to noon every weekday with additional office hours on Tuesdays and Thursday at 2 p.m. So all of this information is again on the website. So the link's on there. And again, the videos, if your child has missed any recordings, it's crucial that they go and watch every single recording. These are we've made it very condensed. Like that one student said, they learned more in one class than they have in the entire month at school. So information is packed into these classes. So I would highly encourage that they don't miss any session before they do their studies. So please make the most of this time till the end of the month when these are free. So that's it. Parents, I've loved it. I will open it up to Q&A now, and I've absolutely loved doing this, and I have to jump behind a paywall after this. So this is a retroactive look on that. The studies plan will be sent out for everybody for free. I hope you follow it, and if you want more guidance with me, and I will basically take entire responsibility for your kids' SAT if you do it with me. So all of that's available. There are, again, there are 300 parents that have signed up for this class since the start. So this email will be going out to 300 parents. There's only 15 slots of signups, so please sign up quickly. It's the only way I can make it fair. All right, so I think you should all be able to unmute yourself if you have any questions now. We will do Q&A towards the last 20 minutes, for the last 20 minutes of the session. And if you're heading out, if you can type in a thank you for Aditi also for coming in and sharing her perspectives, that would be greatly appreciated.
Hi, Pulkit. This is Manoj here.
Hi,
I have
how's
a
it
question.
going?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the great session. One quick question. This intensive SAT study which you are planning,
Yeah.
is it only a one time you're going to do next month, or is it going to be a continuous basis?
Yeah, this is a good question. So this will be offered every single month up till the December test date. Now you have a very key portion here, which is the next month. You're on lockdown, your kids are at home, you can watch over them, and there's really nothing else going on, especially for those parents who, for whose kids are starting IB next year. We will be doing some preparation this month as well, but slots are available for every test up till December.
Oh, okay. So if somebody, so just a clarification, if somebody is trying to take the SAT exam in December,
Yeah.
what's the ideal time frame to take this intensive study stuff?
Yeah, so most of the studying will happen because school is going on. It will happen a month and a half to 2 months before the test date.
Okay.
But if you sign up now, we'll go through like some of the core content or core studying lightly, not intensively, this month as well, and then we'll pick it up again before the test. I don't like to do studying too far in advance because you tend to forget. Again, we're training our brain here.
Right.
So the brain can become untrained if you start too early. But ideally, you want to start 2 months before the test date for every date except for August. For August, we'll start a little bit before July 1st because we only have 1 month and we have a perfect summer holidays.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay. We have yeah, sorry, go ahead, Prashant.
Yeah. These SAT scores, how long are they valid for?
Yeah, SAT scores are valid for 5 years. And
oh,
so
okay.
If your kids, I mean, honestly, students that are just starting high school or just finishing first year of high school, they also have most of the content required for this SAT. So content-wise, it's that simple. So if you have a confidence they can do it, then they should absolutely go ahead and do it.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Pulkit. This is Jay here. Thanks for the wonderful session. I just have one quick question. What's the recommended, the SET test kids should be taking? So, those kids who are going into IB next year, which month test is the recommended one as the first? And then what from your experience, how would you recommend them to do, that you should do October one and December or anything else?
So at the moment, I strongly recommend, with my entire recommendation to do August, because you have the next month free if your child is starting SAT or if they're starting IB next year. And I also have a very strong opinion about this, which is that SAT should be taken only once. And to me, honestly, I will be very honest, a little blunt here. If your child ends up taking the SAT twice, what that demonstrates to me is that they didn't take the studying seriously the first time round. Because if you put in 50 hours now and you put in 50 hours in the future, I would rather they put in the 100 hours now and studied for it once. The second thing is, if they put in 50 hours in the future when their IB is going on, every hour they spend has a cost associated with it, which is an hour less spent on IB and other things. Whereas at the moment, there's no opportunity cost of the studying that's being done. And so that's why I very strongly recommend to do the August test date, and actually if you can get it. Obviously, if you cannot, it's more difficult, but if you can get it, it's great. You can also, if you already have it booked elsewhere, you can email your school to try and move it. There's a lot of things that can be done through email. I know a couple of parents that have it moved successfully, so you can try that. Hope that helps. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. Does it give enough time to prepare for the August test?
Oh, absolutely.
Just a month?
Absolutely.
Is it okay?
Yeah, especially if they've done the past 30 days or if they watch the videos, a month of intensive study is more than enough. It's way more than enough if it's done properly.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, Pulkit, so I understand your recommendation on taking SAT once.
Yeah.
And that's clear, but would you be able to share what happens if someone wants to take SAT again, right? Just because they feel that they've not done so well despite putting in the effort. Are the SAT scores averaged out, or it only the highest score is taken? Would you know the thinking around that from an admissions perspective?
Yeah, no, you can choose which score to send to the schools. And so you can pick whichever one score to send. I do recommend, though, if your child has to take the SAT again, I would recommend you very strongly think about what's the cost of the time spent in that SAT. My argument is that time can be better spent in doing activities at school or increasing your IB scores, which will have a greater impact on the college admission outcome than a 10 to 20 point increase will have the SAT, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep.
Hi, Pulkit, this is Kumar here. Hi.
Hi.
On what basis should a student select between MAA and MAI? Do you have any recommendation? Because we've just gone ahead and picked the courses based on what was given sometime in November last year.
Yeah. So I actually went through the entire syllabus for AA and AI, so I know them quite intimately now. So in terms of college requirements, if you're doing a mathematics course or an engineering course, they require AA, and that's recommended. if you're not doing a engineering course or quant heavy course, then actually an AI is a really, really good course. The material that's touched in there, they go through things like matrices and eigenvalues and eigenvectors. They talk about modeling and how to create models and how to test those models. They talk about optimization. And so those of you that are in the fields, you'll know that these things are actually very applicable to the real world. And so as the name suggests, it's very applied. Whereas the AA mathematics is more theoretical and less applied. The AI mathematics sets you up also using the calculator and solving the questions with the calculator because you can. So I'm very glad the IBO has caught up to technology. So both are really good. If you're doing, if you're going for engineering or mathematics, AA is what the schools require. Having said that, AI is not an easier or for the dumber kids. That's absolutely not it. I want you to, it's very important you get that because AI is a really, really well-designed content actually. It's very applicable. It's very useful to the world.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey Pulkit.
Hi.
Hi, this is Shraddha. I'm Shriya's mom.
Hi.
Thank you again. Great session as always.
Of course.
Yeah, so I heard you mentioned about the time frame that you should consider for the guided preparation sessions that you're going to have 2 months prior to when you're giving the exams. Are there any time slots that you are fixing for the sessions? Because in your website, you've highlighted 70 to 100 hours and the kids would be schooling at that time as well. So I didn't see that information on your website. So
yeah, no, there's no time slots because I'm working with them individually. There's no time slots. We'll make groups and we'll work with groups individually.
Okay, so you will be basically slotting the kids into groups.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, then if we are keen, then we just basically need to book the slot or rather show interest. And then I think there is a link where we have to basically confirm whether we are keen to join the class or not. And then you'll take it from there.
You can go and purchase and check out on the website.
Okay. And just put the test date and then that.
Exactly. And then I'll reach out to you and we can have a conversation. And if it's not a fit, then I'm not here to take your money and run away. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'll spend 5 minutes answering. There's a lot of good questions in chat. So I have a question about the computer science classes, if there'll be any more classes. So yes, if I get good feedback from the students after the 2 computer science classes, the hope is for me to offer a computer science as well in July. So I'm working with a friend right now who's a computer science graduate at Georgia Tech to put the course material together. If the students enjoy it, then that's the hope. If not in July, then a computer science class is coming. Just know that. I'm very passionate about it. I really think students should do it. So a computer SAT class is coming. Is it too late to register for August? It depends. If you're in UWC or SAS, it's not. If you're in NPS, you can try and get it moved. If you're in other schools, it might be. But you can always try, book a date, and then move it. So you have registered for March. When should you advise? Okay, if you registered for March 21, that's a little far. I would say don't start now. Earliest I would start is Jan 1st, or spend your Christmas break doing a lot of intensive studies, and then take a little break, and then the month before the March 21st date, you should study. Should the kids buy any SAT books to prepare? So the content that we've been through in this class is very different than the content in another session or the books. So I don't think any books is necessary. Khan Academy is all the students need for the content portion of it. The books will only confuse the children. Once you've started following an approach, it's best if you stick to it. If you start to murky the waters with other approaches, then it can get a little confusing. This approach is very well designed to get you to that perfect score. So I would not murky the waters with other books or content. I would also not, at this point, if you're considering between SAT and ACT, I would drop the ACT and bid it goodbye or adieu, because you spent 30 hours on the SAT, you've dedicated this time. There's no point to even consider the ACT now. So thank you so much for this question. What other questions? Naman, are there any other good questions that you've seen?
One person asked that after online school starts,
yeah,
like in India, so what will happen for the timing?
I see.
I'm not sure I'm not sure if the question is asking for math, MAA, or for the SAT course.
I see. Okay, I see. Oh, I see. Well, so SAT will contain, the next week will still be at 4 p.m. Because that's the time we've been fixed. The recordings are available online and they're replayed at 7 p.m. For the math classes next month, the assumption is that all Singapore schools are on holiday, from my understanding. If there are Singapore schools that are not on holiday, please let me know in chat or email me. I can try and figure out a different way. But if you're already doing school, then I would not recommend you sign up for the prep course. The prep course is for your summer holidays. If your child is already going through school, then I would not recommend they do that. If the intention is to pursue CS, I think that's a good question, actually. It would depend on the school, what they require. I would say AA because it's a more analytical course, but interestingly, AI would actually be a better preparation content-wise. I think schools require AA, but AI would be a better preparation. CBSE students, I unfortunately don't know. I haven't been through CBSE, I've been through IB. Yeah. Oh, no computer science knowledge is required for the 2 computer science classes next week. The IB prep class is 1.5 hours a day for every weekday, with additional 2 hours office hours with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evening. Okay, I think I'm through with all the questions in chat. You can feel free to speak up again and ask any questions. I think I'm caught up here. Unless if I missed it, please feel free to post it again. Oh, actually, I see another one. Relevance of SAT. Okay, so this is pretty important as colleges are making SATs less and less important. The recommended approach that I recommend is you identify the list of colleges right now, and you look at those colleges and see if they require the SAT. And only then you should be taking the SAT. If they don't require it, you want to think twice, because that time that you spend in SAT can be better spent in learning, in doing better in the IB or doing better activities that can help you in college applications. And the second thing is, on the SAT, from what I've heard, this is coming from advisors at SAS, this is not my knowledge, which is that school wants more information. Even if it's optional, they want more information, unfortunately. I really hope the SAT just crashes and burns and it's not required. If you have younger kids, I hope they don't have to go through this. I think it's really not required. Your kids prove their intelligence with IB. But from what I've heard, the schools want more information. The more information you can give is better. And SAT is that information. Also, a quick poll. I have refrained from sharing a lot of college advice, but would a little bit of college application advice be helpful for the parents? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So the reason I have refrained from doing too much college application advice is because I truly believe that the best information for colleges and application comes from the horse's mouth, which is students that have only just recently gone through the application process. So I strongly believe in applying to getting information from friends or family of students that are in college right now and asking them, what did they do in high school? What activities did they do? What was their SAT score? What did they write about in their essay, right? Or going online and reading essays of past students that have successfully gotten in. I can give you the sort of guidelines, but I want to first make sure I'm educating myself before I do it. So a bit more of that will come in the future. There is, however, a very good resource that I'm helping bring to Singapore that I can type into chat for everybody. Okay, so this is a company that's being started by a Stanford student. So on this link, this should be clickable, I think. You can set up conversations, 30-minute conversation with current students at currently Stanford and UPenn. These are the only 2 schools offered right now. They're running a 2-week beta, so I was able to get them, and I said I'll send it to parents in Singapore. So they're only doing it for 2 weeks. So if you are thinking of applying in this cycle or want some information, you can go on there and set up conversations with current students and ask them these questions about college applications. One thing I would strongly recommend is don't base applications on your own assumptions. For example, coming from an Indian family, the assumption was a good essay is talk about all the awards that you've won and all the math Olympiads that you've gone to and all the good grades you've gotten. But actually the essay that got me into Stanford was me talking about a time when I was on a cruise ship doing a scavenger hunt with my family and what I learned from that scavenger hunt. So the story is more memorable. It wasn't self-boosting. So it's very different than what our assumptions might be. So I challenge you to go outside and get those assumptions pressure tested from students or information online. Because most essays coming from Asia are people talking about how well they did in a math competition, invention competition, computer science competition, and things like that. So if you're trying to stand out and get admitted to those schools, you have to also have your essay be slightly different. So you can get that information from students that are at these universities that have just got in. Again, I applied to Georgia Tech 8 years ago. Georgia Tech has become a much more difficult school to get admitted to now than it was then. So my knowledge is already 8 years old. So I hope that you don't spend thousands of dollars on an admissions consultant who are all 40 years old. Nothing wrong with being 40, but they went to college 20 years ago, so their information is slightly outdated. You want to try and get your information from as updated as possible. Okay, are there any other last questions? Were you able to click, Naman, were you able to click on the link? I think the link should have been clickable, right?
I don't think it is.
Oh, is it not?
You might have to type it in.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Let me see if I can send this in. This is a link. Okay, there should be a link. Perfect. All right, there we go. Great. So I think that is all. So as we do with this class, I will send you out with the rest of Hey Junoon. And thank you so much for this session. And I will see your kids next week. And I hope this was interesting and this was helpful for all of you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
सैम को बहुत पसंद है इसलिए हर वीकेंड मैं